The call came at 4:37 inches the morning while I was parked at a truck stop outside Amarillo, Texas. 62 years old, 31 years behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler, and I'd learned to sleep through just about anything. Diesel engines idling, rain hammering the cab roof, lot lizards knocking on the door at 2 a.m. But when my phone lit up with Frank Delvecchio's name, I sat straight up. Frank never called before sunrise. Frank barely called at all. Frank owned a little diner called Delvecchio's about 3 blocks from my house in Macon, Georgia. We'd known each other since high school, played football together, stood at each other's weddings, buried each other's parents. He was the kind of friend who'd give you his last $20 but wouldn't call you to chat about the weather. "Walter, I need you to hear me out before you say anything." His voice was tight, like he was forcing each word through a pipe that was too narrow. I swung my legs off the bunk. "Frank, it's 4 in the morning. What's wrong? Is Diane okay?" "Diane's fine. This isn't about Diane." He paused so long I checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. "It's about Margaret. Margaret. My wife of 29 years. Mother of our 3 children. The woman who packed me turkey sandwiches for every haul and left little notes in my lunchbox that I'd find somewhere in Oklahoma or Nebraska. Notes like, 'Come home safe. I love you more than yesterday.' What about Margaret? She's been coming into my diner every Wednesday and Friday for lunch. Always around noon. That's normal. She's been doing that for years. You know that." I did know that. Margaret loved Frank's meatloaf special on Wednesdays and his clam chowder on Fridays. She'd sit in the corner booth by the window and read her romance novels. But for the last 4 months, she hasn't been alone. There's a man. Drives a black Mercedes. Wears a suit. They sit in the back booth now. The one by the kitchen. Away from the windows. And Walter, the way they look at each other. That's not business. My chest went cold. Not hot, not tight. Cold. Like someone had opened a window in January, and all the warmth just left. Are you sure it's not her brother? Margaret's brother lived in Atlanta. Drove a nice car. Wore suits. Margaret's brother is bald and 65. This guy is maybe 40. Dark hair. Fit. He puts his hand on hers across the table. Every time. And last Friday, I went out back to take the trash out and they were in the parking lot. He had her against his car, and they were. "Walter, I'm sorry." They were kissing. Not like friends. Not like family. I sat there in my truck, 800 miles from home, staring at the orange glow of the truck stop lights through my windshield. A Peterbilt rumbled past, shaking my cab. Somewhere, a driver honked twice. Normal sounds. Normal night. Except nothing was normal anymore. "How long have you been sitting on this?" 2 weeks. Diane told me to mind my own business. Said maybe it wasn't what I thought. But I saw what I saw, Walter. And you remember what happened to my old man, Mom's so-called bridge partner. Everyone in town knew except him. I swore I'd never let that happen to someone I cared about. I remember. So what are you going to do? I'm going to finish this haul. I'm going to think. And then I'm going to come home. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Just sat in the dark cab watching trucks come and go, their headlights sweeping across the parking lot like searchlights looking for something lost. 29 years. 3 kids. Tommy was 31 now. A police officer in Savannah. Lisa was 28. A nurse in Atlanta. Danny, our youngest, was 24. Just finished his MBA. 4 grandchildren, between Tommy and Lisa. All of it built on a foundation I thought was solid granite. Now Frank was telling me it was sand. I delivered my load in Dallas the next afternoon, and instead of picking up the return haul to Jacksonville, I called dispatch and told them I needed 3 days personal time. First time in 9 years I'd done that. Then I drove straight home. 14 hours. Didn't stop except for fuel and coffee. I pulled into my neighborhood at 5 a.m. Saturday morning. Instead of going home, I parked 2 streets over at the Methodist church lot and sat. I called Frank. What does this guy look like exactly? About 6 feet. Dark hair, always combed neat. Sharp jaw. Wears those slim-fit suits. You know the kind. Always has a leather briefcase. I saw his car up close once. Black Mercedes E-Class. Vanity plate that says prosper, prosper. I knew that plate. I knew that car. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might be sick right there in the cab of my Freightliner. Frank, I think I know who it is. Who? Our financial advisor. Kevin Hartwell. The silence on Frank's end said everything. Kevin Hartwell. I'd been referred to him 6 years ago by a buddy at the trucking terminal who said this guy could turn a working man's savings into a real retirement. Margaret and I had sat in his office together, gone over our 401k, our savings, the life insurance policies, the little bit of rental income from the duplex I'd inherited from my mother. Kevin was smooth, charming, exactly the kind of man who made you feel like he genuinely cared about your future. He had access to everything, every account, every policy, every dollar. Margaret and I had saved over 3 decades of hard work. I didn't go home that morning. I checked into a Comfort Inn off I-75 and opened my laptop. Margaret had set up online banking years ago and insisted I learn how to use it. Thank God for that. I logged into our joint savings account first. 6 months ago, we had $347,000. Margaret and I had been disciplined savers our whole marriage. Every bonus, every overtime check, every tax refund went into that account. It was our retirement, our freedom, our reward for 30 years of me being gone half the time and her holding everything together. The current balance was $112,000. $235,000 gone. I scrolled through the transactions. Transfers to an account I didn't recognize, always in amounts just under $10,000. The kind of amounts designed to avoid triggering bank reporting requirements. Someone who understood financial regulations had structured those withdrawals very carefully. I checked our investment portfolio next. Kevin managed it through his firm, Hartwell Prosperity Group. According to the last statement Margaret had shown me 3 months ago, we had $489,000 in a diversified portfolio. But when I logged into the actual brokerage account, the number was different. $203,000. Nearly $300,000 had been liquidated over the past 4 months, transferred to an account ending in 7,714 that I'd never seen before. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. Not yet. From fear. The fear of a man who realizes the life he thought he was living was a carefully constructed lie. I called Tommy, my oldest, the cop. Dad? It's 6 in the morning. What's going on? I need a favor. Can you run a plate for me? Prosper. Georgia vanity plate. Black Mercedes E-Class. Dad, I can't just run plates for personal reasons. That's against policy. Tommy, please. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Something in my voice must have reached him because he went quiet for a moment. Give me an hour. 40 minutes later, he called back. Kevin James Hartwell, age 41. Address is 2200 River Oak Drive, Macon. Dad, that's your financial advisor. Why are you running his plate? I'll explain later. Thank you, son. I spent the rest of that day building what I came to think of as my evidence file. 31 years of driving had taught me to be methodical. You don't navigate a 40-ton rig through a blizzard on I-90 by panicking. You check your mirrors. You watch your gauges. You take it 1 mile at a time. I printed every bank statement, every brokerage transaction, every transfer to that mystery account. I pulled up our life insurance policies on the company website. 2 policies, one on me for $500,000 and one on Margaret for $200,000. Standard stuff for a couple our age. Except when I looked at my policy details, the beneficiary had been changed 8 months ago. It used to list Margaret as primary and our 3 children as contingent. Now, it listed the Margaret A. Brennan Revocable Trust as sole beneficiary. I had never heard of this trust. I had certainly never signed anything creating it, and the death benefit had been increased. From $500,000 to $1.5 million, I sat back in that hotel chair and stared at the ceiling. The affair was one thing. Devastating. Yes. Humiliating. The kind of wound that makes you question every good memory you ever had. But the money, the systematic draining of our accounts, the increased life insurance with a forged trust. This wasn't a woman who'd fallen in love with someone else. This was a woman or a man, or both of them together, running a calculated operation, and I was the target. Monday morning, I called Barbara Odom. She was the meanest divorce attorney in Macon, which meant she was the best. Barbara and I had gone to the same church for 15 years, but I'd never needed her services until now. "Walter Brennan," she said with genuine surprise. "Never thought I'd hear from you in a professional capacity." "Neither did I. I need to see you today. And Barbara, I need you to understand something. This might be bigger than a divorce." When I laid everything out on her conference table, the bank statements, the brokerage transfers, the insurance policy changes, the plate information, Frank's account of the affair, Barbara's face went through 3 distinct phases. First, the professional assessment. Then, concern. Then, something colder. "Walter, you need more than a divorce attorney. You need law enforcement." "I know. But I need to understand the full picture first. If I go to the police now, Margaret and Kevin will know. They'll destroy evidence, move money, lawyer up. I want to know exactly how deep this goes before I make a move." She studied me for a long moment. "You're smarter than most husbands who walk through my door. Most of them want to scream and confront. You want to win. I want the truth. Winning is secondary." She referred me to a private investigator named James Woodard, former Georgia Bureau of Investigation, 22 years of experience, specializing in financial fraud and domestic cases. I met him that afternoon. "I need you to follow the money," I told him. $235,000 from our savings, nearly $300,000 from our investments. It all went to an account I don't recognize. I need to know where it ended up, and I need to know what Kevin Hartwell's relationship with my wife actually involves. James was a quiet man, mid-50s, the kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting him. Perfect for his line of work. He took notes without expression, asked precise questions, and quoted me a fee that made my eyes water. But what's money when someone's stealing your life? I went home that evening, walked through my own front door for the first time in almost 2 weeks. Margaret was in the kitchen, making pot roast. The house smelled like garlic and rosemary. "There he is." She came over and kissed my cheek. "I thought you weren't back until Thursday?" "I finished the route early. Wanted to surprise you." "Well, I'm surprised." She smiled, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw the girl I'd married in 1996. Brown eyes, warm laugh. The woman who danced with me barefoot in this very kitchen on our wedding night because the reception hall had closed early. "How've you been?" I asked. "Keeping busy?" "Oh, you know. Book club on Mondays, lunch with the girls, helping Lisa with the baby on weekends. Same old boring life." She laughed. "I wish I had half the adventure you do on those roads." I sat at the kitchen table and watched her cook, watched her hum along to the country station on the radio, watched her move through the kitchen with the ease of a woman who'd made 10,000 dinners in this room, and I thought, which version of you is real? The one humming over pot roast, or the one kissing Kevin Hartwell in Frank's parking lot? That week, I played my part. Attentive husband, happy to be home. I fixed the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom that she'd been asking about for months. I took her to dinner at the Olive Garden, her favorite. I played with the grandkids on Saturday while she went to what she called a hair appointment. I noted the time she left. 11 a.m. I noted when she came back. 3:30 p.m. No woman spends 4.5 hours getting her hair done. Her hair looked exactly the same. James called me the following Tuesday with his first report. The account ending in 7,714 is registered to something called Hartwell Brennan Holdings, LLC. It was created 7 months ago. Your wife is listed as managing member. Kevin Hartwell is listed as registered agent. The LLC has a business checking account at First National with a current balance of $487,000. That's your savings and investment money, Walter. They've been pooling it. Go on. There's a real estate purchase pending. A property in Costa Rica, beachfront, listed at $620,000. The LLC put down a $200,000 deposit last month, and I found something else. I braced myself. Kevin Hartwell has had his broker's license suspended twice. once in Florida for unauthorized trading, once in North Carolina for commingling client funds. Both times he moved states and started fresh. The man is a professional predator. He targets couples where one spouse travels frequently and the other handles finances. You're not his first, Walter. I found 2 other cases in Florida with almost identical patterns. Affair with the wife, drain the accounts, liquidate, and move offshore. Those couples didn't catch it until the money was gone and Kevin had disappeared. What happened to those families? One ended in divorce. The wife claimed she was a victim too, said Kevin manipulated her. She got probation. Kevin was never charged because he'd already left the state. The other case? James paused. The husband died in a single-car accident on a rural highway in central Florida. Brake failure. The investigation was ruled mechanical malfunction, but his life insurance policy had been tripled 6 months before the accident. I couldn't speak for a long time. Walter? You still there? I'm here. There's more. I put a tracker on Hartwell's Mercedes with a magistrate's warrant based on the financial fraud evidence. Yesterday, he spent 2 hours at a commercial garage on Industrial Boulevard, a place called Ray's Custom Auto. I did some digging. The owner, Raymond Costa, has 2 felony convictions, one for insurance fraud, one for aggravated assault. He also happens to be Kevin Hartwell's second cousin. What's that garage specialize in? Brake systems and hydraulic work for commercial vehicles, including, Walter, Class 8 trucks. My truck. They were going to sabotage my truck. I called Barbara. Then I called Tommy. Then Tommy called his supervisor at the Savannah PD, who called the GBI, who called the FBI because the financial fraud crossed state lines. Within 48 hours, I was sitting in an FBI field office in Atlanta, across from Special Agent Carolyn Shaw, laying out everything. She listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. When I finished, she looked at me the way a doctor looks at an X-ray they don't like. Mr. Brennan, we're going to need your cooperation for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Can you keep acting normal? Ma'am, I've been keeping an 18-wheeler between the lines for 31 years. I can act normal. The plan was careful. I would accept my next long-haul assignment as usual. I'd make sure Margaret and Kevin knew my route, my schedule, my stops. The FBI would wire my house, my truck, and Frank's diner. James Woodard would continue surveillance on Kevin. And when they made their move on my truck, we'd catch them with their hands literally on the brake lines. The hardest part wasn't the danger. The hardest part was dinner. Every evening that I was home, Margaret cooked. We ate together. We talked about the grandchildren, about Tommy's upcoming promotion exam, about Lisa's new house, about Danny's job interviews, normal family conversations. And every night, after she fell asleep, I'd lie beside her in the dark, listening to her breathe, wondering when exactly she decided I was worth more dead than alive. One night, about a week into the operation, I couldn't help myself. I turned to her in bed. Margaret, if you could change one thing about our life together, what would it be? She thought about it, or pretended to. Honestly, I wish you'd been home more. The kids grew up so fast, Walter. You missed so many things. School plays, soccer games, first dates, broken hearts. I handled all of it alone. I know. And I'm sorry for that. It's not your fault. Someone had to earn the money. She reached over and squeezed my hand. But sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if you'd had a regular job, 9 to 5. Home for dinner every night. A different life. Would you have been happier? She was quiet for a long time. I thought I would have been. But lately I've realized happiness isn't about having someone there. It's about feeling valued. And you always made me feel valued, Walter. Even from the road, she was good. She was so terrifyingly good. Because the whole time she was holding my hand in the dark, telling me I made her feel valued, the FBI had recordings of her telling Kevin that she couldn't wait until it was over, that she was suffocating, that every night, lying next to me felt like sleeping beside a stranger. The operation moved fast after that. I accepted a haul from Macon to Denver, a 3-day round trip, my regular route. I told Margaret on a Thursday morning, "Be safe. she said, kissing me at the door. Call me when you get to Knoxville. I will. I didn't take the truck. The FBI had a driver double, a female agent roughly my build wearing my jacket and cap, who pulled my rig out of the terminal at 5 a.m. Saturday. The truck had been fitted with cameras, tracking devices, and backup brake systems that the FBI controlled remotely. Nothing Kevin or his cousin could do would actually cause it to fail. I was in a surveillance van parked behind Frank's Diner, watching 3 screens. One showed my driveway. One showed the inside of my truck cab. One showed Ray's custom auto. At 8:15 p.m., Saturday night, Raymond Costa entered the trucking terminal where my rig was parked overnight. He had a security badge. The FBI later determined that Kevin had paid a terminal employee $5,000 for a duplicate access card. Costa spent 47 minutes under my truck. The cameras captured everything. He severed the primary brake line and partially cut the backup line. The design would hold for about 200 miles of driving before the hydraulic fluid leaked enough to cause complete brake failure. On a mountain grade in Tennessee or West Virginia, that would be fatal. I watched a man try to kill me on a 5-inch screen while eating one of Frank's turkey clubs. At 9:30 that same night, Margaret called Kevin. The FBI had her phone tapped. Is it done? Ray took care of it tonight. By Monday, somewhere on I-40 through the Smokies, the brakes will go. There won't be enough left to investigate properly. These old trucks have mechanical failures all the time. Nobody will look twice. And the insurance? Filed the trust paperwork last week. The $5 million pays out within 60 days of the death certificate. Combined with the LLC funds and the Costa Rica property, we're looking at over $2 million. A fresh start, Margaret. You deserve it. We deserve it. But Kevin, promise me one thing. Anything. Make it quick. I don't want him to suffer. He's not a bad man. He just wasn't enough. Agent Shaw, sitting next to me, put her hand on my shoulder. She didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. I didn't want him to suffer. 29 years, and that was her mercy. Not don't do it. Not I changed my mind. Just make it quick. The arrests were scheduled for Monday morning. The FBI wanted Margaret and Kevin in separate locations, so they couldn't coordinate their stories. But I asked for one thing. One deviation from the plan. I want to be there when you tell her I'm alive. Agent Shaw didn't like it. The attorneys didn't like it. Tommy, when he found out, really didn't like it. Dad, it's too dangerous. What if she does something crazy? She won't. She's too calculating for crazy. I just need to see her face. I need to know if any of it was real. Monday morning, 7:15 a.m. Kevin Hartwell was arrested at his office by FBI agents before his first client arrived. He tried to run, got about 12 feet before an agent twice his size introduced him to the carpet. At 7:30 a.m., I walked through my own front door. Margaret was at the kitchen table, drinking coffee, reading something on her iPad. She looked up and her face did something I'll never forget. It cycled through 3 emotions in maybe 2 seconds. Surprise, then confusion, then terror. Walter? I thought you were on the road. I was. Now I'm here. But how did you? I sat down across from her. 29 years, Margaret. We built this life together, brick by brick. Every mile I drove for us. Every night I slept in that truck cab, I dreamed about coming home to you. And the whole time, for the last 7 months, you were planning to kill me. Her face went white. Not pale, white. Like every drop of blood had retreated to her core, preparing for fight or flight. I don't know what you're talking about. Kevin Hartwell was arrested 20 minutes ago. Your LLC, the Costa Rica property, the sabotaged brake lines, the insurance fraud, the forged trust documents. We have everything, Margaret. Phone recordings, surveillance video, bank records, everything. She stared at me. Then she looked down at her coffee. Then she did something I never expected. She started to laugh. Not hysterical laughter. Quiet, tired laughter. Like someone who'd been holding their breath for a very long time and finally let it out. You know what the funny thing is? She said. I almost called it off last week, when you asked me in bed if I was happy. For just a second, I remembered why I married you. You were always the kind of man who asked, "Then why didn't you call it off?" Because by then the money was already moved. Kevin said there was no going back. And honestly, Walter, I was so deep in it that stopping felt more dangerous than finishing. She looked up at me. "How did you find out?" "Frank Del Vecchio saw you at his diner with Kevin. Every Wednesday and Friday. Back booth by the kitchen. He called me in Amarillo at 4:37 inches the morning. Frank." She shook her head. "I should have known." Loyal old Frank. He never liked Kevin. He didn't like what Kevin was doing to his friend's marriage. There's a difference. 2 FBI agents came through the door then. Margaret didn't fight, didn't cry, didn't beg. She stood up, put her coffee mug in the sink the way she always did, rinsed it out, and turned around with her wrists together. "I suppose I should get a lawyer," she said. "Margaret Ann Brennan, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, insurance fraud, and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent." She looked at me one more time as they let her out. "Tell the kids I'm sorry. Not that they'll believe me. I'll tell them the truth. All of it. They deserve that." She nodded. And then, she was gone. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Kevin Hartwell pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder, multiple counts of financial fraud, and 2 counts of criminal solicitation. He got 22 years. His cousin Raymond Costa pled guilty to attempted vehicular sabotage and conspiracy. He got 12 years. The FBI reopened the Florida case. The dead husband on that rural highway. Kevin's fingerprints were all over it. Margaret went to trial. Her attorney tried to paint her as a victim of Kevin's manipulation, a lonely wife preyed upon by a charismatic con man. The jury didn't buy it. The phone recordings were too damning. "Make it quick. I don't want him to suffer. He's not a bad man. He just wasn't enough." She got 20 years. Our children handled it differently. Tommy was angry. Cop angry, which is cold and systematic. He testified at the trial without looking at his mother once. Lisa was devastated. She'd been closest to Margaret and struggled for months with the betrayal. She started therapy. And slowly, painfully, she began to rebuild her relationship with me. Danny surprised us all. Youngest kid, always the quiet one. He showed up at my door 2 days after the sentencing with a bottle of bourbon and 2 glasses. "I figure you could use some company," he said. We sat on the porch until midnight, not saying much, just being there. Sometimes, that's all a father needs. I sold the house. Too many ghosts, like the man said. Moved into a 2-bedroom apartment closer to Tommy and the grandchildren. Turned out I didn't need much space. A comfortable chair, a decent TV, a kitchen big enough to make breakfast for visiting grandkids. That's a life. Frank's Diner became my second home. Every morning, 7 a.m., corner booth by the window, the one Margaret used to sit in. Frank brings me coffee without asking. Black, 2 sugars. We don't talk about what happened. We talk about the Braves, about fishing, about his granddaughter's scholarship to Georgia Tech. Normal things, good things. I retired from trucking 6 months after the trial. The open road didn't call to me anymore. Instead, I started volunteering at a veterans support group in Macon. A lot of those guys had been through deployments, long separations from their families, came home to find everything different. We understood each other in a way that didn't require much explanation. One of them asked me once, "Do you hate her?" I thought about it honestly. No, I hate what she did. I hate that she chose murder over a conversation. We could have gone to counseling. She could have told me she was unhappy. She could have asked for a divorce, and I would have given her one. Half of everything, fair and square. But she didn't want half. She wanted it all. And she wanted me, gone. The hardest lesson I learned in all of this wasn't about betrayal or money or justice. It was about silence. Margaret was unhappy for years, maybe decades, and she never said a word. Not to me, not to our kids, not to her friends. She smiled and cooked and kissed me goodbye and packed my lunches with little love notes while inside she was drowning. And instead of reaching for a lifeline, she reached for a man who told her exactly what she wanted to hear. If I could go back, I'd sit her down at this kitchen table 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and say, "Talk to me. Tell me the truth, even if it hurts." Because the alternative, the lies, the fraud, the plotting someone's death, that doesn't just break a marriage. It destroys families. It sends people to prison. It leaves grandchildren growing up visiting their grandmother through bulletproof glass. I'm 62 years old. I didn't plan to be single at this age. Didn't plan to be rebuilding my savings from scratch, starting over like a man half my age without the energy of one. But here's what I've learned. You can survive anything if you have people willing to tell you the truth. Frank Del Vecchio, sitting in his diner at 4:30 inches the morning, debating whether to make that call. Tommy, running that plate even though it could have cost him his badge. Barbara Odom, James Woodard, Agent Shaw, even Danny, showing up with bourbon and silence. The truth hurts. Lord knows it does. But the truth also saves. And sometimes the person you need saving from is the one you trusted most. So if you're watching this and something feels off in your life, if the numbers don't add up, if the schedule doesn't make sense, if a friend calls you at an ungodly hour and says, "I need to tell you something," listen. Don't explain it away. Don't assume the best. Just listen. Because the life you save might be your own. Every Sunday morning, I drive over to Frank's house. Diane makes pancakes. Frank makes terrible jokes. And their grandkids run around the yard like wild animals. It's loud and messy, and nothing like the quiet, polished life Margaret and I used to have. It's better. It's real.